Right now, inside every cell of your body, there is DNA that does not belong to your species. It belongs to a different kind of human entirely. Scientists have confirmed this. It is in your genome right now, and what it's doing inside you, what it has been doing for 40,000 years, is something the textbooks never told you. The species it came from was not a primitive ancestor, not a failed experiment, not the grunting brute your history class described. It was a species that survived for 400,000 years, built tools, buried its dead, decorated its body, cared for its injured, sat around fires in the dark and thought about things. And when your ancestors arrived, when two different kinds of humans shared the same valleys, the same rivers, the same hunting grounds for thousands of years, they did not just fight. They worked together. They learned from each other. They traded techniques. They shared fires, they had children together, and the story of how that happened and what it left inside you rewrites everything we thought we knew about human superiority, human uniqueness, and what it actually means to be the last human species left on Earth. Let's start with what you were taught. Neanderthals were primitive, slow, dim, hunched. They lived in caves, dragged clubs, and died out because they couldn't compete with smarter, faster, better modern humans. Almost none of that is accurate. Neanderthals survived for 400,000 years. Modern humans have been the only human species on Earth for about 40,000 years. Neanderthals outlasted us 10 times over. Their brains were not smaller than ours. They were larger. On average, Neanderthal brain cases were slightly bigger than those of modern Homo sapiens. The structure was different, more visual processing, less social cognition, but the size argument for inferiority collapses the moment you check the actual numbers. They made tools, not crude rocks smashed together. A sophisticated toolkit called the Mousterian industry, carefully shaped flint points, scrapers, and blades that required planning, skill, and knowledge passed deliberately from parent to child. They buried their dead, with objects placed beside the body, flowers in at least one documented case. They cared for their severely injured. Skeletal remains across Europe show Neanderthals who survived broken bones, missing limbs, injuries that would have been fatal without weeks of sustained care from others. Someone stayed. Someone fed them, someone chose not to leave. And in 2010, a landmark study published in Science sequenced Neanderthal DNA from ancient bones in Croatia and compared it directly to modern human genomes. The finding was unambiguous. People of non-African descent carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA in every single cell of their body. This is still inside you. That 1 to 4% is not rounding error or background noise. Specific Neanderthal gene variants are actively shaping your immune response, your cold tolerance, your pain sensitivity, and your sleep architecture right now. The species your textbook called inferior left its code running inside you. And natural selection has been keeping it there for 40,000 years because it works. Imagine this. You are standing on a ridge in what will one day be France. It is 45,000 years ago. Below you, a valley, a river, deer tracks in the mud, a good hunting ground. And on the far side of that valley, a fire. Someone else's fire. Someone who looks almost like you, but not quite. Modern humans left Africa roughly 70,000 years ago. Neanderthals had been in Europe and Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years before that. When our ancestors arrived, they walked into a continent that already had people in it. For a long time, science assumed what happened next was conflict, competition, replacement, extinction. Modern humans arrived. Neanderthals lost. End of story. The evidence tells something far stranger. Archaeological sites across Europe show a period of coexistence lasting at least 2,600 years, possibly as long as 5,400 years, during which both species occupied the same regions, the same valleys, the same river systems, the same hunting grounds, season after season, for over 100 generations. And at some of these sites, the tools are mixed. Neanderthal tools made in a modern human style. Modern human tools made with Neanderthal techniques. Think about what that requires. You cannot adopt another species' technology without contact. You cannot have contact without observation. You cannot observe without proximity. And proximity, repeated across generations, does not stay cold. A 2021 study published in Nature used high-resolution genomic analysis to map the timing and location of interbreeding events between modern humans and Neanderthals. They found not one ancient mixing event, multiple, distinct, repeated, across different regions, different time periods, different generations. This is still inside you. The Neanderthal DNA in your cells didn't arrive in one accidental encounter. It came from repeated contact, over thousands of years, across multiple generations, in multiple places across Europe and Asia. That is not two species colliding once. That is two peoples living in overlapping worlds long enough to become part of each other. Here is the question that matters, not just whether they met, not just whether they interbred. What did they actually do together? The answer is carved into the archaeological record across 40,000 years of evidence in France, Spain, Germany, Croatia, and beyond. They shared knowledge. A toolkit called the Châtel-Perronian, found at sites in France and northern Spain, shows Neanderthal-made objects that incorporate design features and techniques previously seen only in modern human assemblages. Personal ornaments, perforated animal teeth, pierced shells, pigment, red ochre and black manganese, applied to the body or objects. Things with no survival function, things made purely to be worn, to be seen, to communicate. This is who I am. Neanderthals were decorating themselves before modern humans arrived in Western Europe. But the Châtel-Perronian shows a style that fuses both traditions. Two species, one aesthetic, made in the same region, at the same time. That does not happen without watching each other, without learning from each other, without choosing to. They shared fire. Multiple sites show hearths where tools from both species appear in the same ash layer, the same fire, the same warmth, the same cooked meat, the same dark. They shared hunting strategies. Neanderthals were ambush hunters, powerfully built, precise, designed for close-range killing of large prey like mammoth and bison. Modern humans were endurance hunters, lighter, longer-legged, capable of running prey to exhaustion over distances a Neanderthal body couldn't sustain. Different strengths, complementary ones. One species flushes the prey, the other waits at the kill point. You do not need a shared language to work that out. You need proximity, observation, trust built over time. This is still inside you. Your instinct to cooperate across difference, to work alongside someone who thinks differently, moves differently, solves problems differently than you, may have been forged across thousands of years of doing exactly that with a species that wasn't even the same as you. The cross-difference cooperation you do without thinking is ancient, older than modern humans, tested in the field. Let's talk about what you actually inherited. When scientists say you carry 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA, the natural response is to dismiss it. 1 to 4% sounds like nothing, a footnote, a rounding error, background noise. It is not. A 2017 study in the American Journal of Human Genetics identified specific Neanderthal-derived gene variants still actively present in modern human populations and still under positive natural selection. Not drifting randomly through the genome, not fading with time, being actively selected for. Because they make you more likely to survive, right now, in the world you live in today. So what exactly did they leave you? First, your immune system. Neanderthals had lived in Europe for 400,000 years. They had encountered every pathogen that continent had, evolved precise immune responses to them, built that resistance into their DNA. When modern humans arrived from Africa, they walked into a continent full of diseases their immune systems had never seen. Inheriting Neanderthal immune genes was not romantic. It was not accidental. It was the difference between surviving Europe and dying in it. Second, your relationship with cold. Neanderthal gene variants linked to fat metabolism, skin thickness, and cold temperature pain sensitivity have been traced directly to Neanderthal inheritance in populations that spread into northern latitudes. Your body's ability to function in cold climates was partially written by a species that spent 400,000 years mastering European winters. Third, your brain. Specific Neanderthal variants have been linked to attention patterns, risk perception, and the architecture of your sleep cycle. When you wake at 3 a.m. and cannot go back to sleep. When cold air bothers you more than it bothers someone else. When your immune system fires hard at something that barely touched the people around you. That might not be a flaw in your biology. That might be 400,000 years of Neanderthal survival code running exactly as designed. This is still inside you. The traits you might consider weaknesses, sensitivity to cold, disrupted sleep, an immune system that overreacts, may carry Neanderthal fingerprints. A species that lived through Ice Age Europe for 400,000 years built these responses for a reason. You inherited the hardware. The environment it was built for is gone, but the code is still running. And then they were gone. Around 40,000 years ago, the last Neanderthal populations disappeared from the archaeological record. After 400,000 years, gone in what is, geologically speaking, a blink. For decades, the answer seemed obvious. We killed them. Modern humans arrived, competed for food, and either hunted Neanderthals out of existence or outcompeted them into slow starvation. Superior species wins, inferior species loses. Clean, simple, satisfying. The evidence does not support it. The disappearance of Neanderthals coincided with a period of severe climate instability across Europe. Rapid oscillations between warm and cold phases that collapsed ecosystems and food supplies across the continent. Neanderthal populations were already small, fragmented, and geographically isolated before modern humans arrived in significant numbers. Some researchers believe it was disease. Modern humans arriving from Africa carrying pathogens Neanderthal immune systems had never encountered, the same mechanism that would devastate indigenous American populations in the 1500s, not through warfare but through invisible biological contact with something new. Some argue it was simply numbers. Modern human populations reproduced faster, expanded faster, occupied more territory. No violence required, just pressure, slow, patient, overwhelming. The honest answer is we don't fully know. What we do know is that they did not simply vanish. They blended, partially, incompletely, but enough that pieces of them are still walking the earth today inside every person of non-African descent who has ever lived. This is still inside you. Neanderthals are not extinct in the full meaning of the word. A species that passed its DNA into the surviving lineage did not disappear. It adapted into what came next. They are not gone. They are distributed. 40,000 years later, part of every Neanderthal who ever interbred with a modern human is still here, in you, reading this. Here is something worth sitting with. For most of the 20th century, the story of Neanderthals served a purpose. It told us something we needed to believe, that human progress is a straight line upward, that the smarter species always wins, that we are the endpoint, the most advanced, most capable, most deserving version of the human experiment. The Neanderthal was the proof, the one who lost, the failed prototype, the inferior model replaced by the superior one. The DNA evidence dismantled all of it. Neanderthals did not lose to a better species. They encountered a different one, traded with it, learned from it, had children with it, and when they were gone, they left part of themselves inside it. Paleontologist João Zilhão has argued for decades that Neanderthals were cognitively modern, capable of symbolic thinking, long-term planning, and genuine cultural expression, long before the scientific field was willing to accept it. The evidence was always there. We just kept interpreting it through a lens that required Neanderthals to be inferior, because the alternative was uncomfortable. The alternative is this: intelligence is not uniquely human. Culture is not uniquely human. Cooperation, empathy, symbolic thought, none of it is uniquely human. These are hominin traits. They evolved more than once, in more than one lineage, on more than one branch of the family tree. We were never the only ones. We just became the last ones. This is still inside you. Every assumption you carry about human uniqueness, the idea that what separates us from every other creature is intelligence, culture, or the capacity for meaning, was probably also present in some form in the species that lived beside us for thousands of years. The line between us and them was never as clean as the story required it to be. Go back to those first words. Inside every cell of your body, there is DNA that does not belong to your species. Now you know where it came from. It came from a species that stood on ridges and watched fires that weren't theirs across dark valleys, that made tools by hand, taught their children, buried their dead with care, and survived Ice Age Europe for 400,000 years on nothing but knowledge in each other. And when our ancestors arrived, when two kinds of humans shared the same cold continent for thousands of years, they did not only fight. They watched each other. They copied each other. They hunted together. They sat at the same fires. They made things the other had never made. They crossed a line that biology said shouldn't be crossable. And the result of all of that, the result of thousands of years of two species deciding without words that survival was better shared, is you. Not a pure product of one evolutionary line. Not the superior species that replaced the inferior one. A merger. Incomplete, messy, ancient. The living result of two different kinds of human finding each other in the dark and choosing over and over, across hundreds of generations, not to walk away. You are not the replacement. You are the result. And the cooperation that made you is older than your species, older than your language, older than any story you have ever been told about what it means to be human.